All right. Hey, everyone. This is going to be our first attemptive episode here of the CoD Pod that we've so eloquently named it. Welcome to those who are hanging out. This is essentially an interactive podcast that we're doing via stage channels on Discord to be a little bit more engaging with the CoD community. And not sure how often we'll end up doing these, but the hope is to try and get some semblance of consistency that we're going to be able to do. Along with me for the journey here is a fellow CoD content creator, MrSneaky. Sneaky, how we doing, bro?
I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing very good. I'm excited. Hopefully the, channel and the podcast goes really well and people keep wanting to listen to the information and our talks, right?
Very much so. Very, very much so. So we're going to keep it kind of easy breezy today, and we got a few topics we're going to hit on. Definitely we'll try and do some interaction with the communities depending on how many join. I think the great thing is that the podcast we're doing isn't really necessarily dependent on having a big audience, but it is a nice little perk, right, if people kind of want to get a first look at it before we end up airing it and posting the recording live on our channel. So a couple things we're going to touch on today, right, which is, how did we hear about CoD? Our first impressions of CoD after getting a little bit of hands-on with it. Doing a little bit of a comparison, kind of CoD versus RoK, and talk about some of the similarities and the differences. And then talk about a little CoD gameplay. Right, what's really standing out to us? What are some things that we really like that maybe kind of more separating the game within the genre? Not necessarily about CoD or having that in, but more so, what are we thinking about the gameplay and kind of the direction that CoD is going? So that's going to be a couple of the things that we do touch on today. And let's first start off just with the easy one here for. And I'll pass this to you first, Sneaky, so kindly, if you may. Right, how did you find out about CoD? How did you get into it?
Well, I think it's a strange one. I think I found out through Rise of Kingdoms somehow. I think originally Rise of Kingdoms put some sort of mail, or there was some sort of post in regards to their new latest project, which was their, side team, which is Firelight Studios that, created this game, compared to the main studio through Lilith. And then I just did the pre-register. So I pre-registered onto the website. I hit the button, and like a lot of people, I was waiting for the email to come through and obviously join through the email. But at the same time, me being kind of the impatient guy I am, I was hitting the Play Store and checking if the Call of Dragons app was there. And somehow, miraculously, during Server 4 launch, it was there. So I downloaded the app, I installed it, and obviously I made my account, which is MrSneaky, and that was on Server 4. And that's how I've heard of it. I don't know about you, but that's the way my journey started, with playing the game and then obviously enjoying the game and going through the journey that is Call of Dragons, right?
Yeah, no, I feel as though we're probably just mirrored images, mirrored scenarios of each other, because I want to say for me is pretty much the same. I think I found out about it. Man, I think it was it was either from a Facebook ad or it was from someone who told me that shot me a link to one, and this was probably back when I think their Discord had. Oh gosh, I don't even know. I mean, it was maybe a couple thousand people, right? That they had, and oh gosh, I have this audio voice thing on. But then I went to the Farlight Games website, and then I saw the pre-registration. I thought to myself, okay, is this really going to be getting me an invite to to the game, or is it just some type of milestone thing, right? Because some games have that where they'll do a pre-reg, but it's more of, hey, this is just a milestone thing where once you hit the tiers of pre-registrations, right, then they'll just dish out rewards via in-game mails or something like that at a later time. And so I pre-registered thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to get into it, and then nothing happened. Ended up ended up loading up one of my an emulator, right, for me with LD Player, and I just kind of went through what I've done before for other games. I went through a similar process that I did for Brawl Stars when I was playing that for a little bit, and I tried doing it on PC, and I just remember how I went about it, and so yeah, I was able to get into it that way. But it was interesting because I think, like you said, a lot of people feel that when that the pre-registration is somewhat misleading because not everyone knows that if you go on the Farlight website and you look at like right now as an example, there's almost 1 million people that are pre-registered. Right, they're at 941, almost 42,000. Like that's ridiculous. But you'll have people that will look at that and say, "Yo, why hasn't anyone sent me a beta key?"
Yeah, it is strange because, like you say, you look at it now. It's even more crazy because I remember when I pre-regged, I think it was only like 23,000 or just maybe coming up to 100,000, and the fact that it's almost over 1 million, and the servers are still kind of as small as they are because obviously they're still restricting the amount of people that are entering is interesting, right? Because hopefully when it globally releases, it's going to explode. That's what my hope is with the 900,000 plus pre-regs.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, even if you look at the pace for new releases thus far hasn't actually been that bad. I mean, it's been every couple days, at least at this point. A few of the kingdoms have opened up. Oh gosh, I want to say about a day apart. I have to pull up my fancy dancy sheet real quick so I can actually check because I know I have been keeping track of all the kingdom openings. But what are we on? Well, 13. So what is it? 31st, and then 13 opened a little more than a day ago. So
yeah,
I mean, it's been. I mean, if you look at 11 and 12, they opened up 29, 31st, so 2-day spread. 10 opened up on the 23rd, 9 on the 19th, 17th, 15th, right? So 7 through 10 opened up within an 8-day window of each other. But then, you'll get the random, like 6 to 7, 9 days before it opens. So, but I think they're getting closer to having a more consistent interval opening. And like you said, once I think global hits, it'll probably turn into, I would imagine, the same frequency that we probably see with RoK.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I think. Because it is crazy when you think about it. Because when the first season launched, it was just four servers, and we thought, oh, there may be some sort of KVK format. We never knew what, and then the mergers happened, and now, as we're both predicting, it's going to be like some sort of merging format, maybe for the beginning, and then who knows? Hopefully they bring actually like a KVK format again, similar to like Rise of Kingdoms, but into this game, right? Because I don't think everyone wants to keep merging. I think at one point it's going to get a bit boring merging into another server all the time. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle that and push forward the PvP side of all the people that are generally joining the game.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, I think there's a lot of hope for COD right now with what the future holds. But let's do this. Let's transition to some first impressions, right? So again, you started playing, and so again, so let us know what kingdom did you start playing in. Right. How long were you playing until you felt like you had a good grasp of it? And then what were some of your first impressions?
Okay. So the thing is, like, obviously my past experience comes from RoK, mainly RoK. And coming into this, I joined into server 4. But I was within the first 24 hours of server 4 launching. So I started, playing, and a lot of the things or core principles, I want to call them, from Rise of Kingdoms does kind of like translate how you want to approach the game here, similar to like researching or building up your buildings correctly so you're not like smashing everything out in one go. Things like that was a very good challenge and a very good understanding to bring to Call of Dragons, because then it allowed me to, I think, understand the base mechanics of the game. And then when you started going into like my first impressions with all the raids at first was a little bit easy. Like, I think most people will agree, like the bear raids not too difficult when you first, even in like a first server, but when you hit like server into the giant, shall I say, The giants are a little bit more difficult, but it's still a little bit easy. But then when you hit like the hydras, and then you hit the magma demons and the necro, all the different behemoths towards the end game, it starts showcasing, I think, the true potential of the game, and that's what I think. For my first impressions, I loved like the raiding system. Personally, is just so good. The fact that it enforces an alliance, to separate members into tanks factions and DPS factions, and try and create roles for teamwork to actually occur. It's a really good way to like engage the community in a PvE content that's just not like a simple rally against this structure like you would see in Rise of Kingdoms nowadays, right? So for me, I think Call of Dragons is only going to go up personally. Like that's how I think it is. I kind of like fully in love with the game. Is my first impressions of it. There's some bits obviously that we're going to talk and touch on later that obviously can be improved on. I'm not saying it's like the perfect game, but for first impressions, it's done really, really good. Being a beta, and that's what I think people keep forgetting, that we're in beta. It's not a fully released game, and we are technically small little guinea pigs for them, right? To test and check patches and see if it works and if it doesn't work, and if certain heroes are a bit too powerful or not too powerful, and so on. So I do enjoy it, and I do hope they keep the momentum that they've got, because it is a great game.
Yeah. Again, hard to not at least share some mimicking similarities with, even for me, with my first impressions. I mean, I think even before I actually touched the game, and I was just looking through the website, when I was just going through, and I'm talking like the Farlight one where they have the pre-registration, I was just reading through material, and then joining the Discord and seeing some images here and there for Kingdom 1, because for me I started on Kingdom 2 right when it came out, and there was about whatever it was, a month and a half give or take range between when it finally released, when they finally opened a new kingdom. For me, I just thought, okay, right, game, like, clearly they spent some nice money on the artwork, on the animation videos, right? Clearly it looks clean. It looks visually appealing. And then I watched a video from the RoK. Well, I don't know if it was the devs themselves, but they did that kind of live in-person video that they have on the CoD YouTube channel, where it was a RoK employee, and then they were interviewing one of the CoD devs. And so then you remember that? And then
yeah,
and it was early on, and that's where they showed you like the first small bits of additional gameplay and a little bit here and there of some of the behind the scenes. And so, I think when I watched that, when I saw how the visuals looked, when I saw a little bit of gameplay from it, and just taking time to learn more, that was my first just nice little, dip of the feet to say, okay, hey, this actually has, I mean, it looks clean. And for me, I really believe a game has to be visually appealing. Right? You could have the best features in the world, but if the game isn't visually appealing, to me at least, I just don't think you're really hitting that special sauce that you could be to really take it to the next level. And so I think CoD has a really good, healthy mix of both of those. And then when I started playing in Kingdom 2 for the period that we were active there, I mean, honestly, man, the game, to your point, the behemoth fights really felt to me as though I was doing some type of RPG raid, right? It was just, and that was exciting. The fact that, you can't just stand there. They actually have skills that they're using, and you have to micro, you have to reposition, you have to go and grab, the healing stones that they pop down, and you actually have to do it with some level of communication, right? And not to do too much comparison, because I know we'll touch on that later. But to that point, it's not like you're just doing the simple, straightforward, hey, I'm just going to rally the structure, and as long as we have enough of a certain unit type, and we have enough units that are in here, and we have someone that can rally lead, okay, it's just like point, click, wait for it to hit, and it's done.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not engaging. I think it's just not engaging for the player. It's just like you're kind of just watching kind of like an auto battler work instead of actually an RTS game, which is what Rise of Kingdoms and Call of Dragons is at the end of the day. They are really good RTS games that are obviously built upon a city building, concept. So it's a strange one. It's a funny one and a weird one at the same time.
No, man, that is for sure. And so for me, again, after I started playing on Kingdom 2, it was just, I don't know, man. It felt like a wrap to me. It was just, all right, man. I mean, again, they got ranged play, they got they have artifacts for active skill usages. They have on-field support structures for your alliance in the form of barricades that eventually, right now, that we got keeps, and just even just looking at those few things, even if you stripped all that away and you just looked at the range play, for
And
me, there's no other game on mobile right now within the Kingdom Builder genre that is doing that. And even to expand on that, right? There's no other game within the genre that's doing that looks visually appealing and has as much potential as CoD does. So even if you look at the big three, RoK, Rise of Kingdoms, State of Survival, or Mobile, right? 3 most downloaded Kingdom Builders right now. None of them do that. And so for me, the moment that I saw that with true, like just that one area, the true range play, like that did it for me, man. I mean, like let me sit back and just sip this pina colada because it is on like Donkey Kong. And COD is going to give everyone, like that was it. I immediately thought COD's going to give everyone a run for their money. Like they're going to run everyone out of town. As long as they stay on this trending path, there's just the upside. There's just no ceiling. I felt like at that point. And so that was basically how I rounded out what I thought after I played a little bit.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like as you were saying with the ranged combat, the really good thing with Call of Dragons that they do with the open field combat, even though like sometimes like Rise of Kingdoms, sometimes it gets laggy because there's so much going on. The thing is, visually when you're in those fights, it's not a mess. Like you understand what's going on. Like you can see that in this section, these artifacts are being used, so you can see the time bombs, you can see the speech bubbles that are being triggered from who's sent that time bomb. So you get all the information, and it's clean. It's not like a splurged mess on the screen, right? And I think for that as well is like a really big selling point that people need to like look into when you're looking at the open field combat, because it is so clean when you're watching it, even when like you have the range units supporting the infantry units at the front, and you're watching from like a bird's eye perspective, and you're seeing the cavalry units starting to maneuver around like a right or left flank. Like you can visually see it, and it's not confusing, and you can understand it at such a basic level what's going on. And it's such a good like way to experience the game. Like even if you don't play the game, watching it is just so fascinating to see all these players working together the way they can at such an efficient level. So I think they're doing the right thing, and I hope they, like you said, they keep going on this positive trajectory upwards, right? Because it is going to be, hopefully, in a year's time, like same as the Rise of Kingdoms, one of the best, if not the best, RTS city building game that's on the mobile platform.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I guess that might actually be somewhat of a nice segue into just kind of generally talking about COD gameplay, and then we can round it out with maybe some more kind of direct comparisons from COD to RoK, and maybe round out with some conclusions. But just on the gameplay end, it's interesting to me, right? Because for the time I've played RoK, right, since it was RoC, I think I started playing maybe around, gosh, I can't even remember. I'd say like somewhere around 100, give or take. But back when the game was still titled as Rise of Civilizations, before they did the rebrand to RoK, for me, it's funny because when I started playing, I thought to myself, oh, cool, they have archers. But why aren't these archers attacking from the range that you would imagine a archer attacking from? And then that's when you start learning a little bit more. You start asking questions, and even the siege, like you would imagine, siege is ranged. Why isn't sieged attacking from
And like you said, siege units, why are they not being used to besiege a castle with, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Even if you look at like one of the factions, they just end up having siege units, but it's basically just their archers, right? And so it's just the far, not the very far, like you would get with the mages. But like even in COD, they have that, where you literally see siege units, but they're actually ones that you would use to attack and are being utilized in that DPS fashion. So it's not as though you have these siege units, but they're really just for gathering. And I think that to me is, from when I look at COD and the gameplay overall, what it really gives me the vibes. I don't know if you watch any StarCraft or any like true
Oh
RTS
yeah,
games. So I love watching like professional StarCraft, Pro StarCraft 2 for like the GSL and the I think it's the ESL leagues out in South Korea, the pro leagues there, and I love watching that. And so for me, looking at what COD is now, it really gives me the impression, it gives me the feeling that they're really going for this like literal true RTS feel that can mirror something like what we would see in a traditional RTS game, StarCraft, Warcraft, Age of Empires, Command and Conquer, etc. Even a little bit of like Rome Total War, right? You can kind of feel some
yeah.
similarities there. But that to me was always what I envisioned to be the next level. So now that we're seeing that done in Call of Dragons, I mean, again, I just feel that they're at the forefront. I don't know how much more I can say about the gameplay. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, the gameplay is good, and then the thing is as well, what like a lot of people when they first look at Call of Dragons, and then it's a big factor that people obviously consider when they're playing it is like, is it free to play friendly? And the thing is, it's like the amount of content that you can access, and the fact that the way the game works on the season resets, when every time the season resets, all the fog gets reset, as well as the rewards for the fog. So it's like for a free to play player, you infinitely getting goodies constantly. And it's like compared to like RoK, there's only a certain point you get to, and then it just stops. And then it's like it's a kind of a drought as a free to play player to do to like keep up with like crystal tech, for example, and stuff. But in this, you don't even really feel that burden at all. Like and like the stamina system with the gameplay on top, limiting, the capabilities of, say, like a whale just overtaking an entire kingdom and like ruling it himself. Like, there's just certain things like mechanics and procedures in place that I think they thought about and realized, players didn't enjoy this aspect of Rise of Kingdoms. Like, they did not enjoy tyranny, right? So let's see if we can eliminate tyranny in some form, which I feel like they've done a really good job of so far. So I hope they keep pushing that and keep pushing the free to play aspect of it, because I do know you see it all the time in like Facebook groups and certain Call of Dragon groups, like people mourning and being upset, like they feel like free to play players aren't getting any love. But it's like prior to this, and if you played like you did, and you'll know when you played in season 1, which isn't what we're in now, like the true season 1, the percentages for opening a gold chest and you'd get 40 legendary heads and all these crazy things that were happening were obviously there to set the beta players up so they could test the game out properly. And when you're in now, what you're feeling, where the rewards might not be as lucrative, right, as they once were, the pace of what you get in those rewards are still the same. And I think that's what people need to pay attention to as well with the game, because that's one thing that I think sells a game, right? The fact that how good is it as a free to play player? Can they access it, or is it only a spender's paradise? So
Yeah, and to your point as well, right? So I ran the numbers on that. I don't know if you saw that post I did where I ran. I don't know if I made a video on it, but I ran the numbers comparing COD, RoK, Infinity Kingdom, and then someone showed me screenshots for the Warpath numbers on legendary character pull rates. And when I compared them against CoD, CoD was by far and above the best.
Oh yeah.
They were close to a 1% legendary pull rate for like a full character, and then RoK was the second best at 0.8
Jeez.
percent. So, again, you look at that. CoD that means you have a 25% chance of getting more legendary pulls in CoD. It's just the difference is that the reason why it feels like you get a lot more in RoK is because they just have more legendary heroes or legendary characters that are in the gold chest probability pool. You only have 4 right now that are in
the thing is that's what you say. Like you only have 4, and that's the beauty of it as well for all the new players looking at the game, because it's such a small pool at the minute, and you're going to enjoy this style of game, especially for a free-to-play player. You're going to max these heroes a lot sooner than you would have, because the champion pool is so remote at the minute. So everything in the game is such a favorable position for free-to-play players. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I remember I felt the same exact way, to your point, on you feeling as though you're going to be able to max these characters sooner, because you're not having to, it's not like you're getting into RoK right now where they have 30, 40 legendary heroes, so to speak, and then half, give or take, of those are in gold chests for you to actually get a free to play pull on. In Infinity Kingdom, quite a few of the legendary heroes that they made available, and I just remember playing as early as I did. You really, because you played in beta, right? You were able to max them out, even for those who just started playing really early on, even shortly after global release. Because there's just not that many characters, right? You will be able to max them out a lot sooner, and it's not going to feel as grindy. It's not going to feel that much of a burden, so to speak. But I still think even when it gets later on, hopefully the gameplay itself and what CoD has in it when it comes to features, will still be the primary selling point for why people want to get in it. But yeah, getting into it now, being able just to max those out and then essentially just start saving up additional resources for when they eventually release more. I mean, yeah, it is. To your point, it's a no-brainer.
It is definitely a no-brainer. It's mad. Like I said, the game is good. The game is fair. I feel like it's a very fair game, and it's one thing as well to kind of like touch on with, like, since we were talking about spending. When you think about it as well, compared to like RoK and other games, like sometimes like Infinity Kingdom and Lord of the Rings, where spending does give you such a great advantage. In this, it always feels like spending is a choice. It's like at the moment you don't feel pressured into you needing to spend, because it's like instead of like spending to win, as people call it nowadays, or pay to win, it's like you're paying to progress your account quicker. And some people might say, yeah, you're progressing quicker is winning. But in this, because of the limitations they've got in the game, it's not necessarily like you're going to be winning, because of that. So I think it's a really good dynamic that free-to-play players have really good options, and then like spenders don't feel like you have to spend. That's the brutal thing. So a lot of people start spending in these games and then feel like you have to keep spending because you've already invested and you're going to lose your investment and so on. And it gets a bit messy when it comes to that. Like, so I feel like they've done a really good job again in that side of the finance side, or the paywall side of the game. So
yeah, very interesting to touch on the spending, because for me, when I did my spending guide video and I started looking into everything, my thought was, man, some of these prices are like not bad at all, and for the amount, and people could make the argument that usually bundles and what's included in them, along with other things, like for example, to your point earlier about having a higher pull rate for heroes, some of those things will be better during beta, and then they'll kind of curve things out, when global release comes, and even maybe shortly after that as well. But just to the point on spending is that quite a few of the bundles. Like even in the guide I did, where in the first part I talked about, hey, here's the bundles that you should buy in order. And I think I totaled it out where it came out to like $25 or something that isn't even that bad, and you just get all of this for it. And it seemed to me that doing that is a no-brainer. But at the same time, when you look at how they put these kind of soft caps in place with the season resets and the things that stay and don't stay, I do like that idea. And I like it because of the most important point I think about the resets is that it requires you to be active. It requires you to be, and not just active in the sense of being active, but it requires you to be engaged on all fronts, to where how much you invest in season 1 is how farther ahead you'll be in season 2. And you can make the argument that could be the type of rolling or type of rollover that in a level of investment that you'll have to do season to season. And so that, to me, I think is a great way to weed out the people who aren't as active as others. And I do think that actually is a big free-to-play benefit, because as a free-to-play player, right, when everything is reset, everyone's stuff is reset, right? So it's not as though someone who spends money is not going to have the same areas that are reset, or they'll have less reset than you. It's the same exact thing, right? With the exception of obviously the static parts that carry over. That to me should be a benefit, and should be something that's looked at from the free-to-play as saying, oh, now that we've all reset, right, I just need to be more active than this person who's spending, and I might have a chance to actually pace them, maybe in one or two areas, maybe not to say every area, just depending on the volume and how much someone that is spending decides to spend. But I do like the idea that, to me, it feels like it gives them hope. A lot more than in other games where it's basically they just get far ahead and they stay far ahead, and that's it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that, because as my old account, as I call it now, from RoK, is like that. It is maxed out. It's max tech, max buildings, maxed everything, and it is like that. I have that now, and it's one of them crazy thoughts that, in theory, I could not play the game for a year, and if I come back to it, I know I still have all my max tech. I have all my max buildings, and anyone who doesn't have those are already at a disadvantage, which is just kind of nuts when I think about it in like that term. But in Call of Dragons, like you said, it's insane that when the seasons reset, you get your XP gets deleted, the CP that you might have been trying to store for next season cheese, that gets deleted, so you can't do that. Your heroes and artifacts, their XP gets deleted. So everything goes back to one, and because everyone goes back to one, everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone starts at the exact same segment. It's just down to the tech, like you said. And then it's just like, go. Have you learned more than you did learn last season? Because if you learned more, you should generally speed up and level up better, and you'll be more efficient in your role as a player. So it's really good. I think the way they've set the game up is very clever. It might at first seem a bit daunting, or some people might look at it and like go, eek. I don't want to reset. I lose all my hero XP and all of it. It's like, but it's one of them when you actually play it and you go through, the whole process, you actually feel really good, and you feel really relieved too. Because like, I played infantry in the first season, and for me, if you're playing as a free-to-play player, you should never touch infantry. Like, it's like one of the worst things you should touch. Yeah. And like, next season, which is the season we're in now, I was able to reset all my heroes, reset everything, and try something new, which was really good. I'm playing archers now, and I'm loving playing archers. And next season it could reset, and I could just play mages, maybe. And I love that aspect of like being able to test and try new things out, and knowing by the end of the season, everyone's going to get reset. You're not going to get obviously too penalized for testing something out or trying something out. So I really do enjoy that mechanic of the game. I think it might be one of the actually like great selling points of the game once people start embracing it, I think.
embracing, understanding, not
Yeah.
being open to something that's different. I think all of those go hand in hand. And to your point, it does really give me that impression. Right? I kind of think back on like the Team Fortress days where you have dedicated roles, or you think about something like oh my gosh, what is that? What's that PC game where it's like 5-on-5 and it's
League Legend.
I was thinking,
Dota,
I was thinking of something else,
CoD.
but League is fine too as well. No, it's a shooter game, and I can't even think of it right now.
Valorant.
No. It's something else. It's they have a pro league for it. But anyways, even just using the league example. In League, that's how you have it, where you'll have you have a dedicated tank, you'll have your magic DPS, you'll have physical DPS, you have a support kind of flex or top pick, you have a jungler, right? So you have dedicated role types, and I think if you were to combine that with something like Total War, and you look at how that can be applied in COD, you could essentially have, and these are things I talk about that I've talked about in some of my videos, is that you could literally have a few guys that are just running nothing but 5 cav marches, and they're running like shadow artifacts or invisibility artifacts, right? And they're just ganking and flanking archers with like 15 or 20 units, and they're just hitting them one by one by one. You could have you could just have tanky infantry units that are spreading out and just CC pulling or aggro pulling action. I mean, it's just there's so much that I think the game can go into. Like, that's something I think, right? Them coming out with more CC-based artifacts that allow for you to utilize infantry in a more creative way. Even ranged. If you think about utilizing range to do kind of hit and run or blitzkrieg, like, we haven't even seen that really being done, where you have 20 or 30 or 40 range marches that are just going over hills or going over passes and just, like, literally one-shotting farmers, like, just one by one picking them off. Or, I mean, it's just, there's so much of that type of stuff that when you think about the current state of like the meta for strategies and tactics, like, we are super underdeveloped, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, right, everyone's kind of figuring things out. But for me, when I look at, and I think that's why it's good when you have a diverse, when you have a little diverse background and you watch a lot of other types of strategy games, whether it's at a casual or competitive level, it does kind of make you think. It makes you branch out from your comfort zone and start asking those questions on doing trial and error testing. And those are the types of things. And we have, to be fair, we have seen a little bit of it in SS1, but not to the extent of how I would envision it, like late game after we start seeing, like, even for some of the SS1 big fights, like, I've talked to some of the alliances and they told me, like, we're not even all in voice. we're just texting each other. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, that I can't wait to see that level, right? Or whatever the next level will be of PvP, because I think COD has so much to offer and we're just barely scratching the surface.
Yeah. Just to add to that before, like, we finish up and that, like, as you were saying with some of the strategies and stuff, there's like one artifact that's in the game that I look at every day and I can't wait for it to become meta. Because if you've ever seen the latest patch of artifacts, there's a new mage one that allows you to teleport up to like 15 marches. Almost a crop a map.
Yes.
And when I look at that, it's like, I could just imagine, even if it was a Ark of Osiris game mode, even imagine everyone's on the left fighting, and the next minute you have like 3 dedicated guys that teleport 45 marches to the center immediately. Like, I would love to see
it's a staff of the prophet. That's what it's called.
That's it. Yeah. Like, I would love to see these interactions from these artifacts and these play styles they want to clearly implement in the game, with like the invisibility cloaks and stuff. Like, I'd love to see this eventually get put into the game and have its own place, right? Because like you said, it's really exciting to see like how much potential the game could have, especially if you have like a little ounce of imagination and creativity. When you look at some of the artifacts, it's just beyond like insanity when you think how open field could be looking like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it is just, man, and that's the thing, right? Is I think that type of level. So we saw a little bit of this trying to be done, if you remember, back when they were doing, oh gosh, what was it? It was what was it? It was back when they were doing like Flame Dragon and Magma Daemon, and people like finally started doing a little bit more of artifact testing in some of their Legion comps, and then they were trying to, really figure out, okay, how much damage do we need to run? Do we really need to have 15 or 20? What was it? 15 or 20 like infantry legions? Like some alliances were running that for Magma Daemon. And then you ended up eventually having them say, okay, no, we're just going to run, like 4 or 5 infantry legions, give or take, and then we're just going to be essentially primarily run damage. We'll run essentially damage-based artifacts, and then you had people that were initially the approach for strategy was we're going to try and sustain. We're going to go more tank. We're going to go a little more tank, not heavy tank, but we'll go a little more tank, a little more heal sustain, and then we'll work in 30 to 40 mages / archers for DPS. And then you saw the strategy develop, right? To your point, when we were touching on how like the behemoth fights feel very kind of MMORPG raid boss-esque, you saw some of those strategies develop. And obviously they also came out with that update and patch to tone down some of the Magma Daemon damage because people were able to kill Flame Dragon before Magma Daemon. So
imagine killing the end boss before the pre-boss.
yeah. It's like, wait, what? It's like, just so confused. But yeah, so like again, to me that was funny, and but they recognized the difficulty, right? And I think them fine tuning that a little bit more. And then here's the kicker, right? What if in season? This is just a side thought. What if in season 2? Because we know we're going to get a new map, right? Once they finally finish it. And my thought, and I don't know if you feel this, but I almost feel like they're going to try and have the new map ready by the time global release comes, and then instead of having season 1 plus, it will be season 2. I don't know if you feel the same.
That's what I think. Yeah. I think so. The way the game's gone, obviously, I think we went through season 1, obviously the experimental season 1 stage, and the season 1 we're in now is the true season 1 experience. So anyone who downloads the game, this is how season 1 is going to be run. And then as they've done this, they've been working on hopefully season 2. So when we hit the end of season 1, it might be maybe a cooldown timer like they would do in a KVK, maybe a week or so, and then they're going to release season 2, and hopefully it's a new map. There's going to be like new behemoths, new raids to go forth. Obviously they're going to add new heroes, they're going to add new artifacts like you could expect. So that's the way I think they're going to format it in the future. I don't think it's going to go anything too crazy. They could prove me wrong. They could prove us both wrong. But that's the way I think they're going to be pushing forward. It makes the most sense in my eyes as well. So
yeah, no, for real. I think it is very interesting when you're looking at this. I don't know if I want to say idea, but at least what feels to me where it's just to me it really, what it really feels like. It just feels like they have so many directions they can go that they're just so. I don't want to say that they're undecided because we don't necessarily obviously know what is going in, but to me I think that's where some of the potential lies. Is that like another example? They don't have king tools, right, in CoD. There's no you capture Flame Dragon and then you are now able to access king tools, and you can set migration limits, and you can send king's mails to message every player. You can dish out gifts. Like they don't have that in the game. It doesn't mean that they may not include something like that, but that's a big change when you think about right from RoK to CoD that they don't have. But what I do think they have, what I do think they really have right now is a solid foundation to build upon, right? Because they haven't, it feels like they haven't overcommitted to one side or another. Really what it feels like they're focusing on is just building a really good stable foundation that is revolved around PvP, open field, and server merges.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it looks like to me. Like they feel like they have a few directions they could go, and they've taken one way, and obviously we've seen it go with the server merge compared to the KVK format. Yep. So it's one of them where I'm always kind of second guessing myself on what I think they're gonna do, because it's like, are they really gonna do what I expect them to do, or are they gonna show something completely different, right, to shake up the game and shake up the genre, really?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one in that regards, but I think we could end it there. I think we've done a really good podcast for the first podcast. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
If you wanna just, obviously everyone knows that we've got Boss Nasty here and me, MrSneaky here. If you've got Twitter, if you want to plug your Twitter in, or Facebook, everyone, go and check out our Facebook, Twitter posts out. Follow us up on all of the socials. Hopefully smash a like and subscribe on both our channels, and I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. From my perspective, I'll pass it to you, Boss Nasty, to finish it off and clean up the ending, because I'm not a really good clean end closer.
Gotcha. No worries. Yeah, no, again, man, it was awesome to do this, and hopefully we'll in the future be able to have maybe a little bit more heads up for some of the anyone really from the audience that wants to kind of join, or have a heads up if we end up getting some type of timing. Otherwise, if maybe we just kind of go with the Rambo style, just, hey, this is when we're doing it, and for anyone who's around, they can join, and it's more just us giving the option for that, then awesome. But yeah, again, right, remember, YouTube MrSneaky. For me, it's YouTube at Boss Nasty with an I, not a Y. And yeah, man, this was fun. I want to say I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. But overall, I didn't really have any expectations. I'll say that as a kind of overbearing preface. Yeah, it was good stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to keep this up. And again, maybe if we're able to add on another co-host, or who knows, right? Again, more, I think, awesome and engaging, interesting topics. Maybe get some people to come on, interview, do some more engagement with the audience. As we, again, if we are able to kind of do some of those plannings and have more people join, and maybe post some of those questions, get feedback from the community. Again, I really think the sky is the limit for something like this, and hopefully, the community will enjoy our little back and forth, if you will, our little tidbit here. And yeah, so with that in mind, that is it for episode 1 of the CoD Pod. Hopefully everyone enjoys, and again, keep a lookout. Again, whether we continue to do it on my Discord, or even if there's an opportunity to maybe in the future do it on the actual CoD Discord, right? We'll see if that is something as well. But again, you guys can stay tuned, right? Be sure to join both of our Discords, so that way you don't miss out on any notifications. And yeah, that's it for us. So for me and Sneaky, we're out, and we'll catch you guys next time.